Okay, let's jump into a deep dive into Eritrea, specifically starting with part one of what is actually a fascinating seven-part series that you shared with us. Welcome to the deep dive, where we take the material you provide and really, dig in to extract the crucial insights and surprising facts. Our mission today is to unpack the foundational layers of this nation, guided by this initial piece titled Eritrea at a Glance, Part 1.
And what's fascinating here is how this first part, presented as just a glance, already reveals, well, a land of remarkable contrasts and a deep, often overlooked history. It truly sets the stage, giving us the essential facts and painting a really vivid picture of its geography, its diverse environment, and the rich tapestry of its people and civil society.
Absolutely. And right from the outset, source material points out something key. Many people don't actually know much about Eritrea. Yet, it's presented as one of the newest countries on the global stage, while simultaneously being one of the earliest in Africa introduced to modern tech, a significant commercial hub back in the early 20th century, and a place with this really deeply rooted, prolonged struggle for independence. It even throws in a surprising detail, like Alexander Pushkin having roots here. That immediately tells you there are layers we need to explore.
Yeah, that setup is crucial. It signals we're not just looking at a basic overview, but at the historical and cultural context that shapes Eritrea, right from its fundamental elements.
So let's get oriented. This initial section lays out the major outlines, the quick snapshot facts that give us the basic identity markers.
Right. We learn about the country's official name, State Heger, which basically just means state of Eritrea. Its capital is Asmara. And as of the date this source was compiled, the president is His Excellency Isaias Afwerki.
And the flag sounds quite striking from the description. It's a rectangle, anchored by this large red triangle on the left-right, with green and blue triangles filling the right side. And centered on that red triangle is a gold wreath embracing a gold olive branch. It feels very symbolic.
It does, and its national emblem, a
Yeah.
camel.
Simple, yeah.
Simple, yes, but very evocative of certain landscapes we'll definitely get into.
Definitely. The source lists some key state holidays, too. May 24th marks Independence Day. June 20th is Martyrs' Day, and September 1st commemorates the start of the struggle for independence. These dates already hint at the nation's history.
They really do. The currency is the nakfa, divided into 100 cents. For logistics, the phone dial code is 291, and the internet domain is .air. Practical details.
And on the language front, something the source strongly emphasizes is the equality of all Eritrean languages. While the working languages are Tigrinya, English, and Arabic, the list also includes Afar, Balin, Hedareb, Kunama, Nara, Saho, and Tigray.
Yeah, that's 9 in total.
That diversity in language is our first big clue about the people, isn't it?
Exactly. Moving from those fundamental facts, the source gives us a snapshot of Eritrea's geography. It's positioned in the Horn of Africa.
Covering an area of 124,300 square kilometers. But perhaps more significantly, it boasts an incredible 1,151 kilometers of Red Sea coastline.
Yeah,
That location feels inherently strategic.
it is. Being situated on the Red Sea places it directly on one of the world's busiest and, well, most strategic shipping routes. And its neighbors are Sudan, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Yemen, just across the water.
And talk about extremes packed into one place. The lowest area is the Kobar Sink, a staggering 75 meters below sea level.
75 below, yeah.
On the flip side, the highest point is Ambasura, which soars to 3,013 meters. That range tells you something about the varied landscape.
A huge difference. Asmara is the capital, sitting up in the highlands, but the source highlights other important cities and towns like Massawa and Assab, specifically identifying them as the primary port cities,
Okay.
as well as Keren, Dekamari, and Mandafera.
The climate variation is another major point mentioned early on. The lowland areas can swelter between 25 and 40 degrees Celsius, sometimes even higher, while the central highlands are much more temperate, sitting between 10 and 30 degrees Celsius. The source even suggests that you can experience what feels like multiple seasons within just a couple of hours' travel.
Yeah, because of that dramatic shift in elevation and climate. It's quite something.
This is on the +3 GMT time zone.
Right, and yes, Massawa and Assab are clearly the key maritime gateways.
Shifting from the land itself to the people who inhabit it, the source provides a population snapshot. As of the 2002 data cited, the population size was 3.56 million.
And in terms of religion, there's significant diversity. The source mentions Christianity, that's Greek, Orthodox, Catholic, and Protestant denominations alongside Muslim faiths.
Mm.
And it also notes the presence of indigenous faiths.
And reinforcing that picture of diversity, it explicitly states there are 9 distinct ethnic groups.
9, yeah.
Looking at how people live, the population is split, with 60% residing in rural areas and 40% in urban centers.
The source also touches on the major economic sectors. Agriculture forms a significant base, accounting for about 20% of the GDP.
And there's a focus on infrastructure development. Over 14,000 kilometers of roads, multiple airports and airstrips, and 15 large bridge structures. They also highlight a free zone area along the coast earmarked for industrial use, presenting opportunities for investors.
Natural resources seem to be a key area of potential. The source mentions mining prospects, citing a figure of 14,000 kilograms of potential gold reserves,
Wow.
along with base metals, industrial minerals, construction materials, and even geothermal potential. And fisheries are described with a very evocative phrase, a virgin territory in one of the richest parts of the Red Sea.
That sounds promising. Tourism is noted too, highlighting historical and archaeological sites that the source compares in significance to ancient civilizations like Egypt. On the communication front, it lists the key media outlets, newspapers like Hadis Eritrea and Eritrea Profile, magazines, 2 TV channels, Air TV Channel 2, several radio stations covering different needs, and notes the presence of 6 internet service providers. That gives us a picture of information flow.
It does. That initial snapshot gives us the basic coordinates. The source then moves into a more detailed exploration, really diving into the land and the people.
Yes, and it really leans into that idea of striking contrasts in terrain, in climate, and in culture. It brings back the borders in key cities like Asmara, Massawa, and Assab. It re-emphasizes that 1,000-kilometer Red Sea coastline along the busy shipping lane and explicitly contrasts the temperate Central Plateau with the scorching Danakil Depression, one of the lowest points on Earth.
Right. It also reinforces the idea of the 9 ethno-linguistic groups and the 2 major religions coexisting. And it notes a sense of harmony and unity despite this diversity, which the source actually calls rare to most parts of the world. And that concept of being able to experience 3 seasons within 2 hours of travel is highlighted again, really underscoring the unique topography.
So let's break down those geographical zones mentioned. The source details 3 main areas: the eastern slope and coastal plains.
Okay.
This area is arid, gets winter rains leading to seasonal runoff, and it's home to nomadic herders, seasonal farmers, and fishers.
Then there's the Central Highlands. This is the temperate zone, mountainous, where the population is most densely settled, practicing sedentary farming and some light industry.
Makes sense.
And finally, the Western Lowlands. This area benefits from runoff from the highlands and underground water, particularly in the Gash region where they get more rain. It's described as having considerable untapped agricultural potential.
The source brings back the highest point, Amasowera, specifying its location in the Dibub region, and the lowest point, the Kobar Sink, in south-central Dankalia. It helps ground those extremes geographically.
It does. The islands are also discussed, mentioning over 350, mostly clustered in the Dahlak archipelago east of Massawa. Dahlak Kabir is singled out as the largest, significant for its size, 643 kilometers, and its population of about 1,500 people spread across 9 villages.
And the rivers tell us something about the water patterns. The Sedet in the southwest is noted as the only year-round river.
Yeah, the only one.
But major seasonal rivers like the Gash, Barka, and Ansiba flow from the plateau during the summer rains, heading towards the Red Sea or Sudan, and they are crucial for cultivation in the areas they traverse.
Absolutely. The source provides more specific details about the climate in each zone, expanding on the earlier overview.
Right. For the coastal areas, the heat is intense from June to August, often reaching 40 or even 45 degrees Celsius.
Really hot.
Rarely dropping below 18 degrees. Rainfall is mainly in winter, December to February, on the northern coast, but it's scarce in the south.
Up on the Central Plateau, May is the hottest month, peaking around 30 degrees Celsius, but nights in December and January can drop to freezing.
Wow, freezing.
Yeah. They get short rains in April, May, and the main rainy season is late June to early September, though you still see plenty of sun apparently.
And in the western lowlands, April to June is the hottest period, often hitting 40 degrees Celsius. December is the coldest month, down to 10-12 degrees,
Okay.
with dramatic day-night temperature swings year-round. The rainy season is similar to the plateau, but lighter outside the Gash region.
And flooding from the highland runoff is a common occurrence in July and August. This climate breakdown really illustrates how diverse living conditions are across the country.
Absolutely. This variation in geography and climate directly shapes the natural environment, which the source explores next.
The plant life is incredibly varied across these zones. The eastern lowlands feature acacia woodland, brush, thicket, and even mangrove swamps near the coast. The central highlands are dominated by juniper and wild olive trees, along with other species like acacia and notably eucalyptus.
And the Seminawi Bari, known as Eritrea's greenbelt northeast of Asmara, is highlighted as the most thickly forested area,
Ah, the green belt.
containing dense evergreen and remnants of tropical woodlands. The source even calls out the majestic sycamores found southeast of Asmara, noting that one is pictured on the 5 Nakfa note.
Oh, that's a nice specific detail. Kind of grounding the plant life in national identity.
Yeah. The western slopes transition to baobab, brush, and tamarisk, leading into woodland savanna and thicket in the Barka and Gash plains,
Yeah.
with distinctive doom palm groves along the riverbeds. It paints a picture of very different landscapes.
It really does. Now, animal life was impacted by the long history of conflict, colonial practices, and deforestation, but the source points to a resurgence since independence. This recovery is attributed in part to strict hunting prohibitions put in place.
That's good to hear. Common mammals and reptiles that you might spot include vervet monkeys, baboons, gazelles, hares, foxes, mongooses, wildcats, squirrels, and warthogs. Dik-diks and Dorcas gazelles are found along the coast.
Okay? And rarer sightings include elephants, caracals, servals, oryx, crocodiles, greater kudus, and hartebeests. And importantly, the endangered wild African ass is present, though rarely seen, highlighting a conservation priority.
Definitely. Eritrea is presented as a significant location for birds, boasting an impressive 537 identified species.
537, that's a lot.
Yeah. The uninhabited Dahlak Islands, for example, are a haven for marine birds like ospreys, gulls, terns, boobies, ibises, and flamingos.
And the moist forests of Seminawi Bari host a wealth of species like bush shrikes, francolins, sunbirds, tropical bubis, and crimson turacos. A small lake near Asmara attracts specific birds like blue-winged goose, Rouget's rail, and the Abyssinian longclaw.
Ostrich are even becoming common again along the coast and western plains, and a major point is that hundreds of species utilize Eritrea as a crucial stopover during their autumn and spring migrations.
Right, a migratory highway. Marine life is also rich. The source describes diverse marine ecosystems, including extensive coral reefs, seagrass beds, and mangrove forests. 5 species of marine turtle are identified, and several dolphin species are frequently seen, particularly around the Dahlak Islands.
Whales have been spotted too.
Whales, too. Okay.
And importantly, the endangered dugong, or sea cow, is found in island waters and along the northern coast, another critical species for conservation.
Absolutely. Revisiting the topic of natural resources with more detail, the source explains how that mix of climates supports a wide range of crops. It lists staples like millet, sorghum, taff, wheat, and barley, alongside cash crops like flax and cotton, and fruits like coffee, papaya, citrus, bananas, and mangoes, plus vegetables, beans, and lentils.
Quite a variety. Livestock is also key, including sheep, goats, cattle, and camels.
And the Red Sea's potential is significant, offering edible fish, lobster, crab, and shrimp, with possibilities for saltwater fish and shrimp farming aquaculture.
Geologically, Eritrea is described as having extensive reserves of metallic, non-metallic, and fossil minerals. This source specifically mentions confirmed profitable deposits of gold, copper, zinc, potash, and iron ore, and notes ongoing oil and gas exploration offshore. High-quality construction materials like marble, granite, slate, and limestone are also present.
So, quite a bit of potential there. This section then turns to protecting the environment, which is framed as a key concern post-independence. The source acknowledges the environmental damage in the interior after decades of conflict, but contrasts this with the unpolluted coastline and islands, which weren't severely impacted by war or commercial activities.
Okay, so a mixed picture initially.
Right. It states that Eritrea took a firm stance on environmental preservation even before achieving independence, which has helped areas recover.
And specific government actions are detailed as part of this effort. Banning hunting, trapping, and cutting live trees. Since liberation, hundreds of kilometers of hillside terraces have been constructed to combat erosion.
That's a huge effort.
And tens of millions of tree seedlings have been planted, often through summer work programs, Large areas of the Red Sea have been designated as marine reserves, with spearfishing and coral collection prohibited.
Good measures.
Land has also been identified for national parks.
While pollution isn't yet a major problem in the country, the source notes that the government has acceded to important international agreements like the UN Conventions on Biodiversity and Climate Change, signaling its commitment on a global stage.
Now, pivoting from the land and its nature, the source emphasizes something fundamental. Eritrea's nation-building strategy is presented as being built first and foremost on its human resources.
Yes, that's a key point. It highlights the government's stated commitment to religious and cultural freedom, asserting that there is no discrimination or favoritism. The people are called the country's most precious resource, which is why the government is presented as investing heavily in health, social welfare, education, and skill development, aiming to ensure access for all citizens, regardless of their background, location, gender, or age.
The language policy is reiterated. Tigrinya, Arabic, and English as working languages, but importantly, the use and development of all 9 Eritrean languages are encouraged locally, with primary schooling through 5th grade conducted in the mother tongue. That seems like a significant effort to preserve cultural identity.
It does. The concept of unity and diversity is presented as central to the national identity. The source reintroduces the 9 ethno-linguistic groups: Tigrinya, Bilan, Afar, Saho, Rashida, Tigray, Kunama, Nara, and Hidarib, and then provides specific details about each, illustrating that diversity.
Okay, let's touch on those briefly. For instance, the Afar are found along the southeast coast and islands, known for navigating harsh terrain. The source mentions their warrior traditions, the distinctive gile knife, portable houses, and their historical involvement in the salt trade.
Then the Bilan, concentrated around Karen, are described as being both Muslim and Christian, primarily Catholic.
Yeah.
They are organized into kinship groups, and the women are noted for their distinct clothing, jewelry, and tattoos.
The Hedarub in the western Barca and northwest valleys, with roots linked to the Nilotic Beja, are Muslim, patrilineal, and traditionally semi-nomadic pastoralists, known for their skill as camel drivers.
The Kunama, living in southwest Eritrea around Barentu near the Ethiopian border, have adherents of Christianity, Islam, and their own traditional faith centered on Anna. They are presented as strongly egalitarian with some matrilineal elements. Historically hunters and farmers, they are now primarily farmers and herders, particularly of cattle, and their dances are said to reenact historical events, reflecting their past interactions, including impact from groups like Tigrayan warlords.
Interesting. The Nara, on the western slopes and Barca plains, are described as sedentary farmers with an interest in cattle, who shifted from a matrilineal to a patrilineal system. Their traditional ways were reportedly influenced by the introduction of Islam during an Egyptian occupation.
The Rashida are noted as the only ethnic Arabs in Eritrea, having migrated from the Hejaz in the 19th century. They are Arabic-speaking Muslims, living along the northern coast and Sudan border in tightly knit patrilineal clans. The women are particularly recognized for their distinctive elaborate dresses and embroidered veils.
The Saho inhabit the coast and hinterlands south of Asmara and Massawa. Mostly Muslim, some are seasonal or sedentary farmers, and are skilled beekeepers, known for producing high-quality honey. They live in patrilineal descent groups, traditionally led by a warrior figure called the Rizanto.
And the Tigray people are spread across the western lowlands, northern mountains, and coastal plains. Primarily Muslim, they are described as herders and seasonal farmers, migrating with their herds, often using camels and donkeys for transport. They are noted for having a rich oral literature that are known for their singing and dancing, often accompanied by the drum and a stringed instrument called the masenko. They are presented as living in a traditionally stratified society led by hereditary leaders.
And finally, the Tigrinya, mostly sedentary farmers in the central and southern highlands, are the most widespread group across Eritrea. The overwhelming majority are Orthodox Christian, with Muslim known as Jeberti, Catholic, and Protestant minorities. They're described as having a deep attachment to the land and form a large part of the urban population involved in trade and small businesses.
That's a fascinating overview of the groups. The source then provides a summary of religion and society, noting the rough split between Muslims and Christians, with most Christians belonging to the Orthodox Coptic Church alongside some traditional African religions.
Islam's presence is noted as very early, with contact on the Eritrean coast dating back to 615 AD.
Wow, 615 AD. Very early.
Making it one of the earliest non-Arabian sites to engage with Islam. The 500-year-old Sheikh Hanafi Mosque in Massawa is highlighted as an important historical site.
Yeah. The vast majority of Eritrean Muslims are Sunni, with their highest religious authority being the Dar al-Ifta in Asmara, which, is their primary body for Islamic legal and theological guidance. Ramadan is identified as a key period.
Christianity's links stretch back to the 4th century. The Orthodox Church is described as having historically served as a repository for records and art. A significant point is that the Eritrean Orthodox Church separated from the Ethiopian Orthodox Church after liberation and is now self-governing, maintaining communication with the Coptic Church of Egypt.
Right, that separation is important context. The source mentions at least 18 Orthodox monasteries, often located in inaccessible areas. Debre Bison near Nephisit, Ham near Senefa, and Debre Sina near Keren are among the oldest and most important, with Debre Bison specifically noted for housing over 1,000 medieval manuscripts.
Incredible. That highlights a deep historical and cultural legacy.
It really does. Other faiths mentioned include the Kunama traditional religion centered on Anna and significant Catholic and Protestant minority communities, primarily located near urban centers in the highlands and western slopes.
Life for the majority rural population is explored next. They are described as having a deep loyalty to their land. The source breaks them down. Less than 2/3 are purely farmers, about 1/3 are agro-pastoralists.
Combining farming and herding, yeah.
And only a small minority are purely nomadic.
Those in arid regions rely heavily on livestock. The nomadic lifestyle presents challenges for providing social services, leading to health disparities and lower literacy, especially for women. However, the source highlights government efforts aimed at settling nomadic populations, providing infrastructure like wells and dams, offering loans and equipment, and sometimes encouraging the development of areas into small towns with services.
The majority in the Central Highlands are settled farmers, but even they rely significantly on livestock economically and often supplement their income with non-farm activities like trade and services.
Right, showing a mixed economy even in traditionally farming regions.
Urban life is examined next. Historically, towns developed around ports and administrative centers. During the Italian colonial era, Asmara saw significant growth, reaching 120,000 residents by the mid-1930s.
Wow, quite large even then.
With other towns also expanding.
Currently, about 40% of the population lives in towns or cities, with Asmara being the largest at around 450,000 residents. It's described as one of those hospitable cities due to its pleasant climate, perceived safety, cleanliness, distinctive architecture, that legacy of the Italian period, and its diversity.
The source notes that urban centers were initially built with planning. Post-liberation, the government revised and developed these master plans, implementing strict zoning standards. This planning, combined with efforts to aid rural areas, is credited with preventing the emergence of the large slums often seen around many African cities.
Yeah, presenting this as a positive outcome of their approach.
The source then puts a significant focus on civil society, emphasizing the underlying unity of Eritrean society and its ancient history of organization rooted in sophisticated customary laws.
It notes that colonial powers attempted to divide Eritrean society along regional, tribal, religious, and ideological lines, but the source states that the unity of the Eritrean people ultimately prevailed. This historical context seems crucial to understanding the later focus on national cohesion.
Absolutely. A particular emphasis is placed on the role of women, who have a unique history in Eritrea, having participated actively and equally alongside men during the independence struggle. The source highlights their continued active role today.
The government is presented as having taken specific measures to ensure women's full and equal participation and to eliminate historical disadvantages. These measures include reserving a minimum of 30% of seats in the National Assembly for women, appointing women to high political positions, promoting economic empowerment and civil service equality, and establishing institutional mechanisms to support women's rights.
The source notes that about 45% of households are headed by women,
Nearly half.
who have access to assets and actively participate in the labor force, accounting for 47% of workers. Female literacy is also reported as steadily increasing.
The National Union of Eritrean Women, NUEW, is identified as the main NGO in the country, founded in 1979 during the struggle in gaining autonomy in 1992. With over 200,000 members, its achievements are listed, including securing women's participation in land reform, conducting literacy campaigns, raising awareness on various issues, establishing rural credit programs, and lobbying for women's rights.
That's quite a list of achievements. The National Union of Eritrean Youth and Students, NUEYS, is highlighted as another major NGO with a stated vision of building strong youth participation in society. Its activities include organizing summer work programs and are integrated with the 18-month National Service Program. It boasts a large membership of about 240,000.
Wow, huge membership. NUEYS engages in a wide range of programs. Examples provided include education, like the Zagre Awards and skill courses, health awareness, first aid, HIV, FGM, youth empowerment, microcredit, vocational training, gender equality campaigns, club and media activities, providing infrastructure like youth centers and clinics, organizing communal activities like helping families of fallen heroes, hygiene, tree planting, and engaging the diaspora youth by organizing them and promoting cultural conservation. It's described as one of the largest NGOs, showing a significant focus on youth.
The role of workers and their organizations is also detailed. Eritrea's first trade union, the United Eritrean Workers for Independence, was founded early in 1952 but was quickly banned,
Oh, right away.
leading to protests and a crackdown in 1958. The EPLF organized the National Union of Eritrean Workers in 1979, which functioned clandestinely during the struggle.
Then after liberation, it transformed into a formal structure with base unions and 5 industrial federations between 91 and 93, leading to the launch of the National Confederation of Eritrean Workers in 1994, initially with 20,000 members.
By the end of that decade, the Confederation was focused on issues like skill upgrades, promoting democracy on the shop floor through shop steward training, engaging working women through a dedicated committee, and mobilizing peasant producers into cooperatives. This shows the evolution and focus of the labor movement as presented in the source.
Yeah, clear progression. Other civic organizations have also emerged since liberation. Professional associations for groups like teachers, doctors, lawyers, engineers, pharmacists, and chemists are mentioned. The Asmara branch of the Eritrean Studies Association hosted an international conference in 2001, indicating academic engagement.
Private charitable organizations are noted as thriving, including religious ones, international groups like Rotary International, and local initiatives supporting specific groups like war-disabled fighters or the blind. Projects like the Cultural Assets Rehabilitation Project work to conserve heritage, and associations like the Library and Information Studies Association support public libraries. Sports, arts, and cultural associations are also highlighted as flourishing.
The source mentions Government Proclamation 145/2005 concerning NGOs, which defines relief and rehabilitation activities aiming to align NGO work with government development priorities. It notes that about 10 NGOs are currently functioning, with their focus centered on environmental conservation, food security initiatives like microdams, wells, irrigation, and seed multiplication and awareness campaigns on HIV, FGM, gender equality.
Okay. Finally, the source discusses Eritreans in the diaspora. During the independence struggle, the diaspora played a critical role, serving as a source of moral and material support for the movement.
Right. Early diaspora communities were often students, later joined by many who left due to war and instability.
Students, workers, and women in the diaspora organized popular associations explicitly to support this struggle.
Community centers established by the diaspora became important reference points, venues for sharing news, helping acculturate children to their heritage, hosting cultural and social events, and mobilizing resources for the homeland. This highlights the deep connection maintained between those abroad and the country.
Wow, okay. This glance is already incredibly detailed and rich. Just scratching the surface in this first part reveals so many layers, from the dramatic geography and climate to the deeply rooted history of diverse peoples and the structure of civil society that emerged from their struggle.
It truly lays a comprehensive foundation. This deep dive into Part 1 gives us a glimpse into a nation where the past and present are, well, deeply intertwined, and where the source really emphasizes the strength of the people and their history as paramount. It makes you wonder how these foundational elements, the geography, the diversity, the civil organization, have shaped the country we see today and, how they might continue to shape its future path.
And remember, this was only part 1 of the Eritrea at a Glance series, based on the source material you provided, a 7-part series.
There's clearly so much more depth packed into this single document to uncover in the coming parts.
Exactly. We've only just begun this deep dive series. Be sure to tune in for part 2 as we continue this exploration of Eritrea based on the source material.